All right, let's tackle one of the biggest and frankly, most confusing decisions in modern IT. Where on earth do you store all your data? Do you keep it close on your own hardware, or do you send it off into the cloud? This is the classic showdown, your on-premises SAN and NAS versus a cloud giant like Amazon S3. We're going to break down what all that jargon means, and more importantly, which one is the right choice for you.
Look, every single one of us is dealing with this right now. It doesn't matter if you're a massive corporation or a small startup. The amount of data we're creating, from digital content, apps, backups, you name it, is just growing at a wild pace. So the question isn't if you need more storage anymore. It's what kind of storage you need and where it should live. And believe me, this decision affects everything: your costs, your performance, how you scale, the whole shebang.
So here's how we're going to untangle this. First, we'll get clear on what these technologies actually are. Then, we'll pit them against each other on the two things everyone cares about: cost and speed. After that, we'll figure out which tool is right for which job, and finally, we'll look at a really slick, modern strategy that lets you have the best of both worlds.
Okay, before we can even think about picking a winner, we need to get on the same page. We have to understand what we're actually working with here. These aren't just slightly different products. They're fundamentally different ways of thinking about, organizing, and getting to your data.
First up is file storage, or what you've probably heard called NAS, Network Attached Storage. Honestly, this is the one you're most familiar with. Just picture a shared network drive at your office. It organizes data exactly like your laptop does, with a nice, neat structure of folders inside of folders. It's super straightforward and uses common languages like NFS for Linux systems and SMB for Windows. Simple.
Next, we've got block storage. This is the absolute powerhouse behind something called a storage area network, or SAN. Now, instead of thinking in files and folders, a SAN just carves up data into these identical, fixed-size blocks. Each one gets its own unique address, kind of like a specific spot on a hard drive. This whole approach is built for one thing: raw, unadulterated performance. We're talking incredibly low delay and tons of operations per second, which is why it's the go-to for running the really heavy stuff, like databases and virtual machines.
And finally, the new kid on the block, object storage, with Amazon's S3 being the most famous example by far. Object storage completely throws that whole folder idea out the window. Instead, it just dumps everything into one massive flat pool. Every piece of data is an object, which is just the data itself, some info about the data, and a unique ID. And you get to it using web APIs, the same way you'd access a website. This design is built for one thing above all else: just massive, almost infinite scale.
Okay, so now that we know who the players are, let's put them in the ring and see how they actually stack up against each other. This is the traditional on-premises world of SAN and NAS versus the new cloud-native world of object storage.
The very first difference you'll notice is how you pay for it. On-premises storage is a capital expenditure, or CapEx. You buy the hardware upfront, you own it, and your costs are pretty predictable. Cloud storage, that's an operational expenditure, OpEx. You just pay a monthly bill for whatever you use, which gives you this incredible flexibility to grow or shrink as you need. Now, at first glance, that sounds amazing for the cloud, right? But there's a catch. And that catch has a name: egress fees. See, putting your data into the cloud is usually free or really, really cheap, but getting it out? That's a totally different story. A lot of people see this as a way to lock you in because providers can charge a huge premium just for you to access your own information. And that can lead to some pretty shocking bills.
Let's put a number on that because it's kind of mind-blowing. Let's say you have a petabyte of data sitting in S3. If you simply read or move just 20% of that data each month, that's 200 terabytes. The fees for just that data transfer could cost you over $165,000 a year. That's not to store the data, that's just the tax for moving your own data.
So this table really sums up the whole trade-off perfectly. On-prem stuff like SAN and NAS, they are built for low latency speed, perfect for apps that need an answer right now. Object storage, though, is all about high throughput, moving huge chunks of data efficiently. And while a SAN can get pretty big, maybe a petabyte, object storage is designed for what we call exabyte scale. That's 1,000 times bigger. It's just a different universe of scale. And that brings us to the most important point of this whole conversation. This is not about which technology is better. That's the wrong question. It's about which one is the right tool for a specific job. Because choosing the wrong one is like trying to hammer in a nail with a screwdriver. I mean, you might get it done, but it's going to be ugly and painful. So let's get practical. Let's start with the most demanding, high-maintenance applications in any business,
the transactional databases and virtual machines that are running your most critical operations.
These workloads, they have zero patience for delays. They need to read and write tiny little bits of data from all over the place, and they need to do it at lightning speed. Every single millisecond counts. It's all about consistent, high-speed performance measured in what we call IOPS, or input/output operations per second.
For this job, it's not even a contest. The raw low-latency performance of block storage is completely non-negotiable here. A SAN is designed from the ground up to deliver that super high IOPS, near instant access that databases and VMs absolutely live and die by.
Okay, now let's do a complete 180 and look at the other end of the spectrum. I want you to think about gigantic data archives, nightly backups, or maybe the entire media library for a streaming service. Here, the list of priorities is totally different. You need colossal, just enormous capacity that's also cheap. You're not worried about millisecond latency, you're focused on the throughput, the ability to move really big files, and the data has to be super durable for the long haul and easy to get to from anywhere over the web.
And this is precisely the job that object storage was born to do. Its flat, infinitely scalable design and that pay-as-you-go cost model are just perfect for storing huge volumes of data cheaply and making sure it never disappears.
This table really brings it all together, right? For the absolute highest performance stuff, like the boot volumes for your virtual machines or those heavy-hitting databases, block storage is pretty much your only option. For everyday shared documents, good old file storage is still a fantastic and familiar fit. But for those huge modern jobs like streaming video to the world, object storage's insane scale and throughput make it the hands-down winner.
So it sounds like we're stuck, doesn't it? You have to choose performance here on-prem or massive scale up in the cloud. But what if that's a false choice? A truly modern IT strategy doesn't pick a side. It actually builds a bridge.
Yeah, the most effective strategies today aren't about picking one camp and sticking with it. They're about creating a hybrid cloud setup that takes the best parts of each model and smashes them together.
And this is exactly how you do it. You use services like the AWS File Gateway. Think of it like a universal translator. It lives in your data center and presents all that S3 object storage in the cloud to your local apps as if it were just a simple, familiar network drive. So you get that low latency feel of local storage, but you're backed by the limitless capacity and durability of the cloud. You really do get the best of both worlds.
So look, if you take one thing away from this, it's this. Match your workload to your storage. Use that high-performance on-prem block storage for your most critical apps, and then leverage the incredible scale of cloud object storage for all that unstructured data. But even that clear line is starting to get blurry. With the rise of these super smart software-defined platforms that can intelligently place your data on the right storage tier for you, the real question for the future might not be which side to pick, but whether we'll even have to choose at all.